what we're talking about today is the new program that's just on board, and has now been approved. And I'm going to be putting into the chat facility as well the copy of these slides, because after this is finished, I'm hoping that you'll be able to take this further forward as well. So as we always do with any of the work that we do, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the countries on which we're meeting. I'm actually up in Darwin at the moment, a rather steamy Darwin, and which is the land of the Larraca people. And I'd like to pay my respects to the traditional owners on the lands on which I am at the moment, but also pay my respects to the traditional owners, their ancestors and descendants on the lands on which you are at the moment too. And I'd like to recognise the valued contributions that the Indigenous peoples across Australia contribute to Australian global society as we go forward. So what we're talking about today is an introduction to the Graduate Certificate of Teaching Practice. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that acronym. GUTPA, I think, might be something that we're talking to, but let's just call it the Grad Cert. I'm going to go through a very brief overview about who should participate, why, what the requirements are for participation, and the eligibility is something we'll be talking about later on as well. I'm going to try and give you a bit of an overview to the program and the requirements. I'm also going to address specific questions that I know people have got about RPR or recognition of prior learning for those people that have participated in some aspects of this previously. We'll talk about time commitment, and we'll also talk about the different options that you've actually got, because everything that's within the Grad Cert is also available as professional learning. You don't actually have to do the Grad Cert. You can actually just engage with the professional learning component of it as well. And then I'm going to try and leave as much time as possible to provide answers to questions that have come up. Your contributions to those questions is going to be really helpful for us to create a FAQ on our websites. So I encourage you at any time to add to the chat any questions that are coming up as I'm going through things, because if you've got the questions, other people have as well. So it will be really helpful for us to make sure that we've got the answers to all the questions. I'm Deanne. For those of you that I haven't met before, I work within the Institute for Teaching and Learning Innovation, and I'm the program convener of the Graduate Certificate for University Teaching Practice. I'd like to also begin with this a clear description that this is not the previous graduate certificate in higher education that UQ used to offer in the past. The focus of this is very much on university teaching practice. And when I'm talking about university teaching, I'd like to also make it really clear that I'm talking about anybody who is within the role of a university educator. And that does include professional staff people. It does include industry specialists. It includes casual, it includes research-focused academics who are doing postgraduate research supervision. So the key thing around this is actually the multiple ways that the university talks about teaching practice. And the focus is very much on teaching practice. The other thing I'd like to put in as part of a reason for engaging with this particular program is and why we've gone down this particular route is because for the most part, people come into teaching university practice or become a university educator through multiple different ways. Unlike school education, where you're required to engage with a degree program in order to develop your teaching skills, develop a teaching practice, and earn a formal qualification. In order for you to teach in a higher education context, in Australia, it's still the prerequisite for on the most part is an engagement with a PhD program. So There are two different ways that you can capture or gain credentials for teaching and learning at UQ. One of them is through the Higher Education Academy, or HEA, at UQ program. That is for people who have already developed capabilities and experience and expertise over a period of time. What became really apparent when we were looking at formalizing other aspects of it was that there were people who either hadn't had that opportunity of developing expertise over time, or were people who wanted to enhance the capabilities that they've built through their practice. And the way that we decided that we would formalize this is through the development of the graduate certificate in university teaching practice. So the focus for this is very much around curriculum design, assessment, pedagogy, inclusive teaching practices, and it's around capability and capacity building around those core aspects. It is accredited by Advanced HE. So one of the things that's really key for us here is that there's now two different pathways to HEA fellowship. There's the pathway through the HEA at UQ program, which is based on your existing experience and expertise. And now there's the graduate certificate in university teaching practice, which is about how you are developing those capabilities and expertise in curriculum design, assessment, pedagogy, and inclusive teaching practice. So the important thing here is that it's for everybody. And if you are a UQ staff member, it is free. There is no charge attached to that. It is part of your professional learning, because we are you are engaged in university teaching, and as a university educator, this is an opportunity for you to build your capabilities. We are working with the Faculty of Humanities, Arts and Social Sciences, but the program is essentially delivered by Italy staff and affiliates to Italy staff. It is open to anybody and everybody who takes on a teaching role, for both new and experienced educators, but also for learning designers, course coordinators, clinical educators, as well as professional staff who might be learning advisors as well. We have a large range of expressions of interest that people can actually apply through, and there is a selection process, but the selection process is really to prioritize individuals who are wanting to do the graduate certificate, and making sure that we've actually got space for everybody on the program going forward. So why would you want to participate in it? You can see the reasons for it are multi and varied. These are the things that came through from a body of work that we did a couple of years ago, where people were actually asking for some form of professional qualification that was recognized, and that could be transferred, and could go with them as they move through their careers, but also maybe moving through different institutions and through different roles within UQ as well. So the reasons for developing the graduate certificate are pretty much the reasons that the people that we were working with in focus groups were telling us why they wanted to engage with some form of professional qualification. And you can see the reasons for that on the screen at the moment. So I think the key thing for it is, if you are wanting to participate in the program, there's 4 essential courses, and you can see the listing and the names of those on there. But I think it's a little bit one of the reasons for doing this particular presentation is because what we wanted to make sure was a key feature of the grad cert was that there were multiple and flexible pathways that really spoke to individuals who were participating in the program. So here we go. Hold on to your horses, folks. There are multiple entry points into the first of the courses within the grad cert. So the Teaching Foundations program is open to a range of different people, some of whom may not be eligible to continue with the grad cert. These would be people who have got particular visa requirements or are doing PhD programs, and they are restricted to the kinds of to the program in which they're already enrolled. Doesn't mean that they won't be able to do it in the future, but at the point that we're working with now, if you are working as a tutor, and we're talking about an experienced tutor, or a new teacher to UQ, or somebody who's wanting to be teaching at UQ. So this is our research-focused academics who might be going into the research and teaching program. You would be taking a teaching at UQ program. If you're a new course coordinator or somebody who's wanting to enhance your course coordination capabilities, you would be doing the coordinating at UQ program. We are starting up a learning designer program in 2026, and we're starting the clinical educator program as well, or ClinEd at UQ, which we will have rolled out in 2026, but we are hoping that we'll be able to offer a pilot in the second semester this year. There are also people who have previously done a teaching at UQ or have done a program that was called the Graduate Teaching Associates and had completed it in 2023 or 2024. And there may well be people who are experienced academics who are level C and D and have got teaching responsibilities who would like to engage with the graduate certificate. And that's the RPL or recognition of prior learning module. Any one of those streams, the teaching at U, the coordinating, the learning designer, the ClinEd at UQ, and the recognition to prior learning are pathway to achieving the learning outcomes for the Teaching Foundations course. At the completion of that Teaching Foundations course, you automatically become an Associate Fellow of the Higher Education Academy if you have successfully completed all the assessment requirements. You will then be invited to participate in the remaining 3 courses that you can see on the screen, the curriculum design at UQ, the teaching and practice, and the teaching project. The completion of all 3 of those mean that you complete the graduate certificate in university teaching practice. Now, there may be people who don't necessarily want to complete the graduate certificate, and you might want to just do a program around curriculum design and a program around pedagogy or teaching and practice. And that means that you can actually just do those two modules as well, and you will complete the program as a professional certificate in university teaching. If you successfully complete all of the assessment requirements for those 2 activities, you will also automatically leave the program of those, the micro-credential, I suppose you could almost call it, of the professional certificate in university teaching as a fellow of the HEA program. So I'd also like to just alert everybody that the Tutors at UQ is not one of the pathways to the Teaching Foundations program. It is a pathway towards the Teaching at UQ program once you have gained some experience. If there are people, I'm just checking through the chats, that there are some people who have completed the GTA program previously, and if you're wanting to engage with the program, you will need to complete one of the teaching at UQ, the coordinating at UQ, the ClinEd, or the learning designer. Even if you are a fellow of the HEA or an associate fellow of the HEA, if you want to do the grad cert. The reason for that is because all of those programs have now actually undergone a substantial revision. There is not an automatic translation from the previous versions of the GTA into the current examples of teaching at UQ. The change actually occurred in 2023 when we aligned our assignments and our assessments and some of the tasks that are in there. The GTA program had a substantial revision after that. If you want to do the grad cert, you will need to do one of those Teaching Foundations pathways if you had completed the GTA in prior to 2023. The associate fellow, you maintain that associate fellow status. You don't get another associate fellows or a fellow status, but it does mean that you are doing the detailed learning that's required for the foundations. I hope that answered your question. We'll address that a little bit more. The other question that's come through is about PhD students. PhD students are welcome to engage with this on condition you're doing a teaching component. If you're also acting as a tutor and you have been an experienced tutor, in other words, you've been doing tutoring for a longer period of time than this one semester, you're more than welcome to engage with one of the most appropriate stream that suits your particular practice. We are prioritizing academic staff members, so they may not be placed in the first couple of rounds of the teaching at UQ, or coordinating at UQ, or the clinical education at UQ for PhD students, but we hope that we'll be able to do that at a later stage. If you are an international student doing a PhD, unfortunately, visa requirements mean that you won't be able to do an additional degree in terms of your graduate certificate, but we're more than welcome to come and have a conversation with us, and we can see what we can actually do. In terms of the RPL module, I think there will be a number of people that will have questions around that. You can see the requirements for this on the screen at the moment. Essentially, what you're doing with the RPL module is that you're gaining the course credit, you're completing the assessment tasks, and you've got access to the online learning materials. There is a module that you can do as well, where you'll actually be able to engage with some of the learning too. So you basically ensuring that you have met the requirements for the teaching foundations. There is an expression of interest form, and there is a consultation process that we will have to help you and support you to see whether that RPL module is appropriate for your particular situation. Uma, you've put a question on there. I'm not 100% sure. I will double check for you. The post-study visa, if you are a UQ staff member and a portion of your agreement at your work is around teaching and learning, and you will be likely to be employed at UQ for the duration of the grad cert, those are the parameters that we are working within. But then I'll double check on that. I'm not specifically sure about the type of visa that you've mentioned there. The key thing for the grad cert, as you may have mentioned, as you may have seen, sorry, I just skipped over there, is that there's multiple entry points, there's multiple opportunities for you to decide what's the most appropriate for your particular context. You could do the full grad cert. You could do just the foundations aspect. You could do portions of the teaching and practice modules, and only those ones that are applicable to you. You could do just the teaching and practice module, or just the CDA, the curriculum design module. If you don't complete the assessment tasks, you've done the professional learning, but you would not necessarily be within the graduate certificate. We've created this entry point and the teaching foundations course to help you navigate through your professional learning needs, and to make the decision whether you want to actually commit to a full graduate certificate, or if you just want to do the individual courses. So it really is up to you about what it is that you're wanting to do. Bottom line, if you want the graduate certificate, you do have to complete all of the courses, and you have to have successfully completed all of the assessment tasks in order to be eligible for the graduate certificate recognition at the end. Similarly, if what you're wanting to do is develop the capabilities that will allow you to be a fellow of the HEA, rather than going through the HEA UQ program, you do need to do those two courses. you do need to do the assessment tasks that are associated with them. And I'm happy to give you some more information about what would be included in there. Bottom line is that it is possible for you to complete the graduate certificate over a year. We'd be expecting the majority of people would be doing it in a part-time basis and completing it over a 2-year. There is a grandfathering clause as per all activities at UQ, and we've got a maximum completion time of 10 years. It really depends on the course. When people are asking me about how much time do I have to commit to it, what we've tried to do in terms of the timetabling is make sure that as far as possible, the face-to-face components are offered in either an intensive mode or at times where there's not teaching. At times when we're trying to use it non-teaching weeks as far as we possibly can. There are also mechanisms in place where we've got some things that would be available online, and there's some things that are available in a face-to-face component. We're looking at offering the program in a partnership collaborative mode and the Gatton campus as well. And it really depends on demand. So if there is something that you're interested in, we'd love to hear from you because we can make things happen. Karen has just put in a question there about teaching at UQ. Because you have completed the teaching at UQ in 2024, that means you can do the RPL. If you had not completed the teaching at UQ previously, but you were a level C or a level D teacher and have been promoted through UQ's processes, you might go directly to the RPL once we've had the conversation with you. I hope that answers your question, Karen. So I think the important thing that we really picked up from the focus groups that we were running previously was to make sure that everything that we offered allowed people to complete at a pace that was suited to their personal needs and their work commitments. We wanted to make sure that you might do the foundation course this year, and you might do the teaching and practice the next year, and then you might do the CDA the year after. You can alternate which way you want to do those. The teaching project is the final project. It's kind of a capstone, but we're looking at how we can actually do those too. Erin, again, that's a question that we'd actually have to double check on what's actually happening. But my understanding is that you would be eligible to do it. It's more about what kind of, if you are connected to a particular program of study, that we have some restrictions related to visas. But as far as I understand it, if you're working at UQ and you're a staff member at UQ, you are eligible to apply for the program. But I will have to take that on advice and double check that. In terms of the eligibility and entry requirements, if you've got a bachelor's degree from any university equivalent, from any university, doesn't have to be a UQ university, you are eligible to apply. It is a graduate certificate. You don't have to have a bachelor's degree in education. It can be in any discipline. It is a graduate certificate, which means that you have to hold a bachelor's degree. It could also be a bachelor honors. That's fine too. You do have to be employed at UQ with teaching responsibilities for the duration of the program. What that means is that if you do move on, if you have a short-term contract that only goes up to September, unfortunately, you'll be unlikely to be accepted onto the grad cert. But if your contract was extended, that's fine. We'd absolutely be able to talk through it. And if you might want to accrue some of the courses. The other reason why we've gone with the grad cert is because it's pretty similar to other grad certs at other institutions. So if you do move on to another institution, it is transferable. You will be able to take the course credit with you. Similarly, if you've done something similar at another institution and you'd like to have course credit applied, we can have the conversation. We need to go through the due diligence to make sure that there is similarity, and you may be required to do the RPL module, but have the conversation through the expression of interest, and we'll go through. You've got to have a minimum a GPA of 4, but the important thing is that you have to have obtained endorsement from your head of school or supervisor. And by supervisor, I don't mean PhD advisor. I mean supervisor who is employed, who is somebody who pays your or signs off on your timesheet, essentially. In order for you to have access to this grad cert, because it is a free one, because there is issues around professional learning and professional development and tax implications, you do have to be employed at UQ, and you do have to have the support from your head of school, and that it's appropriate for you to be doing it. So anybody who's holding any visa, can I just ask it, we just have the conversation and we check with Italy if it just before you actually apply so we can make sure that you're actually eligible to it. It is an assessment process and it is a competitive entry, but the competitive entry is because we have limited places available. We're trying to make sure that there's a minimum of 50 for each of the foundation streams. So the teaching at UQ, the coordinating at UQ, and soon the clinical educator. We were able to get close to 50 in this last round for each of those courses of the intensive that we held this semester. And that was without advertising. So you can appreciate, I'm sure, that there are limited places available. We will try and get through things as soon as possible. There are multiple instances of teaching at UQ, teaching at coordinating at UQ, and soon clinical education at UQ that you can apply for. And we'll try and make sure that we get you into the system as soon as possible.